Today, we're diving into a really controversial idea, one you've probably seen debated all over the internet. And that's the claim that for women, a successful career and a happy relationship are basically a zero-sum game. We're going to break down the specific argument behind this, piece by piece.
You know, the entire debate really boils down to this one single question. Does climbing the career ladder actually shrink your dating pool? The framework we're exploring today says yes, absolutely, and it has a very particular reason why.
So first things first, let's get a handle on the basic argument. We're going to unpack the claim that this isn't just a random pattern, but a direct cause and effect relationship.
Okay, so the core idea is this. As a woman becomes more and more successful in a really competitive field, something fundamental is supposed to change that directly messes with her dating life. It's a huge claim, so let's dig into the mechanism it proposes.
And that brings us to the very foundation of the entire argument. It's a concept from sociology called hypergamy. And according to this theory, this idea is the starting pistol for the whole chain reaction.
So what is it exactly? Well, hypergamy is this tendency, which we see in a lot of cultures, for people to want to partner up with someone at their same level or higher when it comes to status and money. And according to the source material, this is a major driver in the dating market. So this is where the theory frames it as a simple math problem. If the goal is to find a partner who is at your level or above, well, as your own status goes up, the number of guys who actually fit that bill gets smaller and smaller. But wait, that's only part of the equation. Because the second part of the claim is all about the men who are in that smaller pool. The theory argues that what it calls high-value men, the really successful ones, are actively trying to avoid partners who bring that competitive energy into the relationship. They're supposedly looking for a partner who complements them, not one who competes with them.
Okay, so if that's the what, let's talk about the how. How does this actually happen? Well, the theory proposes this specific psychological mechanism for how a great career can create that competitive vibe at home, and it's called trait drift.
Trait drift is basically the idea that you become what you do all day. If your job rewards you for being aggressive, for being assertive, for constantly proving yourself, those traits don't just magically turn off the second you clock out. They start to, drift into who you are all the time. Let's walk through the chain of events here. So, you kill it at work by being a total shark. You get promoted, you get raises, so you lean into those behaviors even more. Pretty soon, that assertive managerial vibe becomes your go-to setting. And this, according to the theory, is what makes your home life feel less like a partnership and more like a hostile takeover. And this chart really lays out the core conflict that the theory is talking about. The traits that get you ahead at work, being aggressive, being managerial, are shown here as the polar opposite of the traits that are supposedly preferred at home, being collaborative and warm. The argument is that it's just about impossible to be amazing at both at the same time.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? This framework doesn't just point fingers, it prescribes a really specific and honestly a pretty stark strategy.
The big idea here is that you can't have it all. At least, not without some serious, intentional work. The proposed fix is to make a conscious choice. Is your number one goal career domination, or is it relationship optimization? And once you pick one, you have to actively work to rewire your default behaviors to match that goal.
And this is the crucial part. The framework lays out two very different paths. Path 1, you lean into your career. Your identity is career first. You accept that your dating pool is going to look different, and you find a partner who is all in on that power couple model. Path 2, you prioritize the relationship. You deliberately work on those home traits, and you look for a partner who wants that more traditional, complementary kind of dynamic.
Now, it is absolutely critical that we look at the other side of this. We have to talk about the critiques and counterarguments mentioned in the source material. Because this whole framework, it's built on some really big assumptions, and it's so important that we question them. And the critiques are pretty major. First, there's a huge risk of overgeneralizing what men, even so-called high-value men, are actually looking for. Second, that definition of high value is often super narrow. Third, and this is a big one, it kind of ignores our ability to code switch, to be a boss at work and a loving, relaxed partner at home. And finally, these ideas are often sold as universal truths, when in reality, what people want in a relationship changes dramatically from culture to culture.
The theory we've been talking about focuses almost exclusively on that traditional model. But that's just one slice of the pie.
A ton of successful relationships are power couple partnerships, or what you might call parity-based models, where leadership is shared. And these dynamics often thrive on the exact kind of assertiveness that the other model says is a problem.
So, after all that, where does this leave us? Well, instead of just accepting this whole theory as some unbreakable law of nature, the source material suggests we can actually use its ideas as a launchpad for thinking more strategically about our own lives.
The real takeaway here might not be that the trade-off is real for every single person. The more powerful idea is simply that being intentional, really thinking about what you want and how your daily actions either help or hurt that goal, that's a useful exercise for anybody, no matter what path you end up choosing.
So what does that kind of strategic thinking actually look like? Well, it could mean sitting down and clearly defining your main goal for the next year. Or it could be something as simple as creating a little context switch ritual for when you get home from work to help you leave that office mindset at the door. The key is to be the one designing your approach, not just falling into a default mode. So we end by turning the whole thing back to you. After hearing the theory and the critiques and the other strategies, the most important question isn't really whether the theory is true. It's what you decide is true for you. Career, relationship, balance. What is your primary objective and what's your plan to get there?